So happy birthday to America, 250 years old. I figure this is a good time to do a little bit of a rumination on empires and specifically how they fall. Empires don't usually fall to an invading army, they actually rot from the inside out, while everyone's distracted. They all rot the same way. You got the same 5 symptoms every time without fail. There's this guy, Sir John Glubb. He spent his whole life studying how civilizations rise and die. In 1976, America's 200th birthday, fittingly, he published a short paper called The Fate of Empires. He lined up 11 of them across 3,000 years. Assyria, that lasted 247 years. The Arab Empire, 246 years. Spain, 250. British Empire, 250. Technology changed, the weapons changed, religion changed, and the lifespan didn't. About 10 generations, that's all you get. Now, the years aren't so important because one of the criticisms of Glubb's work is that he picked the years and split Rome into 2 to kind of make them fit. But the more important thing he described were the symptoms of a dying empire. So you have these very specific symptoms, and these are the things that really matter. So like I said, this rumination is going to be about these symptoms and where exactly America falls on that list. So starting off at number 5, we got the bread and circuses. The culture stops rewarding building things and starts worshiping being seen. Glubb calls it the moment celebrity replaces achievement. Every late empire does this. Rome had its gladiators and free grain and bread and circuses to keep the broad and anxious public entertained while the real foundation started to crack. Now we have the infinite scroll. Ask kids today what they want to be when they grow up. They just say famous, influencer, gamer, all-out ranked scientist, astronaut, engineer. That's not really a moral failing of the kids. It's a signal of where we are as a whole society and where it points its attention and its rewards. The society in its prime celebrates people who build things, bridges, dams, rockets. An empire in decline celebrates the person filming themselves in front of those things. It's hard to say where it all began, but I would probably put it around the early 2000s. That was the emergence of reality TV and people wanting to become famous for being famous. You had Paris Hilton blaze a trail, and then the Kardashians nicely paved it over. This isn't limited to social media either. If you've watched this channel before, you know my love of the professional managerial class. That's a class of symbolic capitalists known for not building anything, and in previous videos I've talked about how they've slowly displaced the working class, the people who build and make things, as the base of the Democratic Party. So it's fair to say, number 5, we checked that box. Then we got number 4, the money breaks. Glubb says every empire reaches a point of an excessive love of money and debases its currency to keep the party going. We got national debt that keeps growing and no real plans to do anything about it. It's bigger than the entire American economy. The last time that happened was right after World War II. What was different back then was that we were the industrial engine of the world that needed to be rebuilt. That's not the case anymore. Remember, we don't build anything. So we're a business spending about $50 billion a week just to keep the doors open and the lights on. Rome clipped the silver out of its coins until they were pretty much worthless. We just do the same thing with a printer. So I'd say it's fair to say we check that box too. Number 3 is the oligarchy. Wealth stops circulating and pools at the very top, and the rich quietly secede from everyone else. Glubb's word was selfishness. The moment when the elites stop seeing themselves as part of the nation and start seeing themselves above it. The richest in the US now own over a little of a third of the nation's wealth. The top 1% own about half the entire stock market, while the bottom half owns about 1%. Around 2015, the middle class stopped being a majority class. 4 in 10 Americans are classified as poor or low income, including nearly half of all kids. Christopher Lasch was talking about this more than 30 years ago. Elites and their immense wealth make themselves citizens of the world, being able to easily move from one place to another, just all around the globe, with no real allegiance or alliance to any single nation state. Billionaires are building bunkers now all over the world. So you tell me, do we have an oligarchy? I think so. But I would put a finer point on this and say that the oligarchy isn't necessarily where you think it is. We look at people like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, all these uber super wealthy people, but the truth is their impact on our governance is pretty limited actually. And again, if you've seen this channel, you know where I say the true oligarchy is, and that's in the professional managerial class. Those are the elites who have attained positions of power and status and basically dictate what we can and can't say on political campaigns, specifically the Democratic Party. They're the ones who really try to control the Overton window of what we can and can't say, policies that can and can't be implemented. They're the ones in Europe when people and voters are calling for less immigration. They're the ones who are holding the gates open for more immigration, regardless of election outcomes or how people voted. And this all stems from a deep belief that they know better than everybody else. It's really the unwashed masses being able to cast a vote that's getting in the way of real progress. So I'd say we definitely have an oligarchy. Number 2, the crown slips. This is where the rest of the world stops needing you. Glub noticed the decline always comes with a transfer of power away from the fading empire, usually toward a rising one. Ours is happening right now. For decades, the dollar was the unquestioned king of global commerce. At the turn of the century, it made up about 72% of the world's reserves. Today, it's down to the mid-50s and slipping. Central banks are actually quietly hoarding gold at the fastest pace since the 1960s. China is building an entire payment system designed to route around the US. The empire's superpower was always that the world had to come through Washington. The world is now very deliberately building a route that doesn't go through Washington. And number one, it's the enemy within. And that brings us to the big one, the one that actually kills empires. It's that we turn on each other. Glub pointed out that great nations really never get conquered from the outside in their final stage. They come apart from inside. And we're consumed by internal division, unable to agree on anything, too busy fighting each other to notice that the building is actually on fire. Pew Research found that 8 out of 10 Republican and Democratic voters can't even agree on basic facts. Not policies, not values, but the actual facts. Between this and the algorithm, we've sorted ourselves into people with shared borders and currency, but almost nothing else. The real disheartening thing, but also the cause for hope, is that Glub notes that all the external factors can be overcome by a united country. None of them can survive a country that hates itself. The empire doesn't get murdered, it commits suicide. And take a look around. Our education system is constantly pushing the narrative that the US is evil and that it's never done anything good. It's trained women to hate men and men to hate women, and according to studies, they do, but the men hate the women apparently much less. Black people have to hate white people have to hate everybody else. The divisions are endless and constantly being manufactured and pushed. So you put it all together, the distraction, the broken economy, the oligarchy, the slipping crown, the house divided. That's a checklist written 50 years ago, and we're currently checking every box. But let me white pill you here for a second and try to end this thing with some hope, because Glub didn't think that it was destiny. He thought it was a pattern, and a repeating pattern at that. But the reason he wrote it down was so that a society can see the pattern and has a shot at actually breaking it. The thing that we have that those other nations didn't have is that we actually have the source data to observe the pattern and study it. The question now isn't whether America is showing signs because it is. It's obvious. The question is whether we can do anything about it and take action, or are we just going to ride this thing all the way down, insisting that this time it's going to be different. So I want you to let me know what you think in the comments, which one of these things is going to take us down. Because I'll tell you right now, I think it's the division. If you can't even agree on basic problems, we're not going to be able to agree on solutions. There's something called a shared reality theory by E. Tyro Higgins, where he studies the need to align our beliefs with those around us to feel connected. In a highly polarized environment, maintaining a shared reality with your political peer group becomes more psychologically important than accepting uncomfortable truths. There's also the ICHN. Dan Cahan and the Cultural Cognition Project have studied how people process factual information. It showed that individuals highly proficient in math and science are most often prone to twisting facts because they use their own trained intellectual skills to twist around facts that threaten their political identity. Political scientist Michael Parenteau said famously that the only things they really care about is what you think. In a world that's driving us all apart, and it's so obvious that at a certain point it's hard to believe it's not on purpose. There's a lot of incentive for the people at the top to have us hating each other. It lets them do whatever the fuck they want while we're fighting over perceptions of reality. They don't want you to think critically. I really have no idea how to solve this problem, but I do have a few suggestions. One, for the love of God, read. Disconnect from the algorithm, sit quietly, and force your mind to focus on one thing for a while. It's like a muscle and you got to exercise it. Two, read things you don't agree with. Whenever I come across an article or book that really resonates with me and I agree with it, I try to go and find the counter argument and do my best to understand the other side. I think if everyone made a good faith effort to do this, most people would fall into alignment on a lot of issues and realize we're not enemies, and for the most part, we want the same things. The whole horseshoe idea of the extreme left and the extreme right go so far around and actually wind up touching each other is just people realizing that they want the same thing, but use different phrasing. The other thing is talk with people you don't agree with and have good faith conversations. When people feel attacked, they retreat and guard and won't be open to listening to anything you have to say. And you, on the other hand, have to realize that if what you believe is grounded in reality, they can't take anything from you but your time. Number 4 is understand that the hate, disdain, the anger you feel toward people who disagree with you didn't grow naturally. It was placed there by a malevolent force wanting you to feel those things. So anyway, that's what I got for you today. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and let me know what you think in the comments.